Thanksgiving at my brother's house was never optional. It was the kind of thing that got announced in the family group chat in September, with my mother adding 3 turkey emojis and everyone confirmed. Like it was a work meeting. I never pushed back. I packed up my 7-year-old daughter, drove 40 minutes across town, smiled at the door, and played the role that had been assigned to me since I was old enough to carry a casserole dish. This year felt different the moment I pulled into the driveway. My sister-in-law's car was parked crooked, taking up space the way she always did, just slightly over the line. My brother's truck was next to it, freshly washed. The house smelled like cinnamon and something roasting when I knocked, which I still did even though my mother technically lived here too, in the finished basement they'd converted when her knees got bad 2 years ago. My daughter held the pie I'd picked up from the bakery on the way. She was wearing the dress my mother had sent for her birthday, the one with small yellow flowers, because she'd asked to wear it specifically for today. She wanted her grandmother to see it. My sister-in-law opened the door. She looked at my daughter first, then at me, then at the pie. "You didn't make anything?" "I brought pie. Apple and pumpkin both. I already made pie." She took both boxes anyway, and walked back toward the kitchen. My daughter looked up at me. I squeezed her hand once and we went inside. My mother was in the living room in her chair by the window, the one my brother had bought her last Christmas. The one I had quietly paid for and let him give as the gift because it mattered more that she had it than that I got credit. She lit up when she saw my daughter and held out both arms. My daughter ran to her and climbed carefully into her lap, smoothing her dress so grandmother could see the flowers. "Look at you," my mother said. "Just beautiful." My brother came in from the back porch where he'd been doing something with the grill even though everything was already in the oven. He hugged me with one arm, the kind of hug that communicates obligation rather than warmth. "Glad you made it," he said. Of course. His kids, 11-year-old Marcus and 9-year-old Sophie, were somewhere in the back of the house. I could hear them. My daughter had already stopped hearing them. She pressed herself into my mother's side and asked to see what was on television. I went to help in the kitchen. My sister-in-law had a system and the system did not include me. I knew this. I offered anyway, because it was the right thing to do, and she handed me a bowl of green beans to trim without saying thank you or making eye contact. I stood at the counter and trimmed green beans while she moved around me with the efficiency of someone who had decided long ago that I was furniture. "Mom seems good," I said. "She had a rough week." "Her knee again. Did she go to the doctor?" "I took her Tuesday." A pause. "Like I do." I didn't say anything. I kept trimming. The afternoon moved the way these afternoons always moved. My brother talked about his job, a logistics company where he'd recently been given a new title that meant the same work with slightly more responsibility and, as far as I could tell, not much more money. My sister-in-law talked about the house renovations they were planning for the spring. My mother listened and smiled and occasionally redirected conversation toward my daughter, who had become her project for the afternoon, the two of them building something with blocks in the corner while the adults talked around them. I was a hospital administrator. I managed a department of 14 people and a budget with more zeros than I like to think about on holidays. When it came up, my mother said, "That sounds stressful," and my brother said, "Good benefits though," and my sister-in-law said nothing because she had walked back into the kitchen at that exact moment. Dinner was fine until it wasn't. We ate at the long table my brother had bought when they moved in, the one that fit everyone with room to spare. Marcus and Sophie sat at the far end. My daughter sat between me and my mother, cutting her turkey into careful pieces, quiet the way she always was in groups, watching everything with the focused attention she'd inherited from somewhere I couldn't identify. The conversation had circled around to money, as it always did when my brother had had 2 glasses of wine. He was talking about the renovation budget and how everything cost more than expected and how the contractor had added $2,000 to the estimate after they'd already started. "It's just how it works," my sister-in-law said. "You plan for 30% over and you're never surprised." "Easy to say," my brother said, but warmly, the way people say things to spouses they're still mostly fond of. "You should see what Rachel's hospital paid for the new wing," my mother offered. She was proud of me in the abstract, the way people are proud of things they don't fully understand. "That's different," my sister-in-law said. "That's institutional money. It's not real." "It's real," I said. "It's just budgeted differently." She looked at me over the rim of her wine glass with an expression I had seen many times before, The one that said she was tolerating my presence as a courtesy to my brother and hadn't decided yet whether I deserved a real response. "Marcus, eat your vegetables," she said instead. My daughter had gone quiet beside me. Not the quiet of someone distracted, but the quiet of someone listening carefully. After dinner, the kids went to the basement playroom. My mother stayed at the table with her decaf. My brother started on the dishes. My sister-in-law and I cleared the table in parallel, moving around each other without speaking. I went to check on the kids. Marcus and Sophie were on the floor with a video game, controllers in hand, ignoring everything. My daughter stood by the bookshelf looking at the same shelf she always looked at, the one with Sophie's old picture books that no one read anymore. "You okay, Bug? Can I read one?" asked Sophie. Sophie didn't look up from the game. "Whatever." My daughter took a book carefully and sat in the corner to read it. Marcus glanced over at her. "She always does that," he said to Sophie. "Does what?" "Just sits there by herself. Doesn't she have friends?" Sophie laughed. My daughter kept her eyes on the book. Her ears had gone pink. "She has plenty of friends," I said. Marcus shrugged. "She's kind of weird." "Marcus." "What?" Sophie said it first. "Last time she was here Sophie said she was." "Marcus." My voice was flat. "That's enough." He picked up his controller. My daughter turned a page she hadn't finished reading. I went back upstairs. My sister-in-law was at the counter slicing pie, mine, the ones I'd brought because apparently her pies were for tomorrow. My mother was still at the table. My brother had moved to the couch with his phone. "Your daughter's too sensitive," my sister-in-law said without looking up. Marcus didn't mean anything. He called her weird. "Kids say things." He said it specifically to make her feel bad. "There's a difference." My sister-in-law set down the pie server and turned around. "I'm sorry if my son hurt your daughter's feelings. But you can't expect every child to cater to her particular." She paused, searching for the word she wanted, the one that would land precisely particularities. My mother said nothing. My brother was looking at his phone. "She's 7, I said. "And Marcus is 11 and learning how the world works. The world isn't going to adjust for everyone's sensitivities. Better she learns that at a family dinner than somewhere it actually matters." I looked at my mother. She picked up her decaf. I looked at my brother. He scrolled. Neither of them said a word. I went to get my daughter's jacket. She was still in the basement, still reading, or pretending to read. She came upstairs without argument, which told me everything. She had been waiting. "So early," my mother said. "We have things at home. It's not even 7. My sister-in-law was plating pie in the kitchen. She didn't come out. My brother stood up and walked with us to the door with his hands in his pockets. "She didn't mean anything," he said quietly. "You know how she is." "I do," I said. "That's exactly the problem." My daughter was already on the porch, coat on, holding her own hand with her other hand the way she did when she was trying not to cry, and didn't want anyone to see. I said goodbye to my mother. She hugged my daughter for a long time and whispered something in her ear that made my daughter smile a very small smile. Then we walked to the car. On the way home, she was quiet for 10 minutes, and then she said, "Was I weird today?" I kept my eyes on the road. "No. You were exactly yourself." Marcus said I was weird. Marcus was wrong. Why didn't anybody tell him that? I didn't have a good answer for that. I told her the version that was true but incomplete, that sometimes adults don't say something in the moment and that doesn't mean they agree. It just means they made a choice I wouldn't have made. She accepted this the way children accept things that don't fully make sense, by filing it somewhere and leaving it. At home I made her hot chocolate and let her stay up 30 minutes past bedtime because I wasn't in the mood to be a disciplinarian. She fell asleep with a book on her chest and I carried it to her nightstand and stood in the doorway of her room for a moment before going to the kitchen. My phone was on the counter where I'd left it. There were no messages when we left. There was one now from my mother. "Did you make it home okay? Also, don't forget the ISP bill is due. Are you handling that or should I ask your brother?" I put the phone face down. I opened the cabinet under the sink where I kept a folder that had been growing for 3 years. I am an administrator. I document things. It is not a personality trait. It is a professional reflex. And it had, without any particular intention on my part, resulted in a fairly comprehensive record of what my mother's life actually cost and who was actually paying for it. I took the folder to the kitchen table. My mother's internet. My card, on autopay since 2021. Her supplemental health insurance premium. My card, every month, $294. The basement renovation when she moved in, which my brother had announced as a gift he and his wife were giving her. I had written the check for $14,800 because they'd asked me to cover it temporarily while they sorted out a cash flow issue from some investment that didn't work out. That was 26 months ago. No one had mentioned repayment. The hearing aids the year before that. $3,400. My credit card, because she needed them before her next Social Security check and it had seemed cruel to wait. The car I had co-signed for 4 years ago when she needed something reliable and her credit wasn't good enough alone. My name was on that loan. I received the statements. I had never missed tracking whether she made the payments. The monthly transfer I had started after her retirement, $1,100 every month to cover the gap between what she received from pension and Social Security and what she actually spent. Every month for 31 months. I sat at the table with all of it spread in front of me. I had never added it up all at once. I had kept track of each piece separately, the way you keep track of individual trees without acknowledging you're standing in a forest. The number, when I finally wrote it down, was $89,420. Not counting the small things, the pharmacy runs, the birthday dinners I'd covered, the time I bought her a new mattress because her back was bad and I happened to be there when she mentioned it. Those were in a separate column I marked as estimates. Another $4,000 or $5,000 conservatively. I thought about the pie she'd served tonight. Mine. Both boxes. I thought about my sister-in-law explaining to my daughter, through the mechanism of not correcting her son, that she was welcome to sit in the corner and read quietly but she should not expect anyone to make room for her. I thought about my brother scrolling his phone while I stood there asking for the most basic acknowledgement. I thought about my mother picking up her decaf. I closed the folder. The next morning I did not feel like being reckless, which is why what I did next felt less like anger and more like clarity. I am precise by training. I drafted the email the way I would draft any document at work. Clear subject line, organized body, no unnecessary language. Subject: Financial summary and changes effective December 1st. Attached is a complete record of financial contributions I have made on behalf of our family over the past 4 years. Total documented amount: $89,420. This does not include co-signing obligations still active on the vehicle loan. Effective December 1st, monthly transfers will stop. Supplemental insurance premium payments will stop. Internet bill will be removed from my payment method. I am beginning the process of removing myself as co-signer on the vehicle loan and notifying the lender accordingly. I want to be clear about why. Last night my daughter was called weird by Marcus in front of Sophie while I was standing there. Neither of you addressed it. When I brought it up, I was told she was too sensitive and that the world wouldn't adjust for her particularities. No one at that table said a single word on her behalf or mine. And then, within 2 hours of leaving, Mom, your first message to me was about a utility bill. I am not a utility. I've reviewed the actual numbers. Mom's monthly income between Social Security and pension is approximately $1,780. Her monthly expenses, including the car payment, insurance, food, and incidentals, are approximately $1,640. She is not in financial danger. She is in the same position many people are in retirement, living within her actual means. I sent this to everyone because I am tired of being the person who handles things quietly. I would rather be misunderstood loudly than continue being taken for granted silently. I sent it to my mother, my brother, my sister-in-law, and my aunt on my mother's side, who was not involved but who had always been kind to me and whom I trusted to know the truth rather than whatever version would be constructed without me in the room. Then I put my phone in my bag and took my daughter to her Saturday soccer practice and watched her run in the cold morning air with 11 other 7-year-olds and felt, for the first time in several days, like I could breathe. My phone started when we got back to the car. I didn't look at it until she was inside the house, changed, and eating a grilled cheese at the kitchen counter with a cartoon playing on the tablet. 17 messages. My brother had sent 4. The first was, "What is this?" The second was, You can't just send something like that to everyone. The third was, call me. The fourth was, this is not okay, Rachel. My sister-in-law had sent two. The first was long. I skimmed it. It contained the word dramatic 3 times and petty once, and made reference to how much she had sacrificed having my mother in their home, as though the $14,800 I had paid for the renovation was a detail that had slipped her mind. The second was shorter. You have some nerve. My mother had sent one, I don't understand what I did. My aunt had sent one, call me when you can. I'm on your side. I responded to my aunt immediately, thank you. I'll call later. I responded to no one else. My brother called that afternoon. I answered because I wanted to, at least once, have the conversation directly. You embarrassed Mom, he said. I documented what I've spent. That's embarrassing? You sent it to Aunt Carol. You made it a whole thing. I made it a whole thing because it's been a whole thing for 4 years and I've been the only one who knew that. What does that mean? It means you've been living in a house with Mom in the basement, taking credit for being the one who kept the family together, while I've been quietly paying for the parts of her life that didn't fit into your arrangement, and nobody ever thought to ask. A pause. I didn't know about all of it. I know you didn't. That was partly my fault. I kept it quiet because it felt easier than having this conversation. I'm having it now. You can't just cut her off. She's not cut off. She has income. She has a roof. She has food and healthcare. She has you, which is what everyone kept telling me was the real gift anyway, the daily presence, the proximity. You said that at Christmas 2 years ago. You said it mattered more that you were there every day than anything else. Silence. Now you can be there every day and I'll handle the things that were always supposed to be mine to handle, which is my own life and my daughter's. She's going to lose the car. She has a car payment that is $340 a month on a 4-year-old sedan. If she can't refinance it in her own name, she can arrange another form of transportation. She lives inside the city limits. There is a bus line 2 blocks from your house. She's 68, and she is healthy enough to sit at a Thanksgiving table and say nothing while my daughter gets called weird and then text me about an internet bill within 2 hours. Her knees are bad, not her judgment. He didn't say anything for a moment. Then, she feels terrible. I believe that. She wants to call you. She can call me. Will you answer? I don't know yet. He made a sound that was somewhere between frustration and something sadder than that. You're really not going to back down. I spent almost $90,000. My name is on a loan I didn't ask to still be on, and the only message I got after my daughter was made to feel small at your dinner table was about a utility bill. No, I am not going to back down. I heard him set the phone down somewhere, not hang up, just set it down. In the background I could hear his house. The television. Someone walking across hardwood. The ordinary sound of a life that had been running smoothly in part because mine had been quietly subsidizing it. I'll pay you back, he said finally. Whatever I can. I'm not asking for that. Then what do you want? I thought about it for a moment. Not for effect, genuinely. I want my daughter to be treated like she belongs in this family. That's it. That's the whole thing. I don't need credit for the money and I don't need apologies for the past and I don't need anyone to be different than they are. I just need, going forward, for the people at that table to understand that she is a person and she is mine and you don't get to smirk while a child makes her feel like she doesn't belong. I didn't smirk. You scrolled your phone. Which is worse, actually. He didn't argue that point. My sister-in-law did not call. She sent a third message 2 days later that was carefully worded in a way that suggested someone had told her to tone it down. It acknowledged that Marcus's comment had been unkind and that the conversation at the table had not gone well and that she understood why I was upset. It did not contain the word sorry. It contained the phrase going forward twice, which is what people say when they want to close a chapter they haven't fully finished reading. I did not respond. My mother called on a Tuesday evening. I was helping my daughter with a school project. A poster about an animal she had chosen, a red-tailed hawk. And she was very focused on getting the wingspan measurements exactly right. I let the call go to voicemail and finished the poster and got my daughter to bed and then sat on the couch and listened to the message. My mother's voice sounded older than I expected. Not weak, just older. Like something had shifted slightly in the 26 years since I had last heard her sound truly sorry. I should have said something, she said. When Marcus said what he said, I should have corrected him immediately, and I didn't, and I don't have a good reason for that. And when Rebecca said what she said to you, I should have spoken up then too. I didn't do that either. I sat there and let it happen, and then I sent you a message about a bill like nothing had occurred to me. That was wrong. That was very wrong, and I know it. A pause. You have been the most reliable person in my life for a long time, and I have treated you like reliability was a given rather than a gift. I don't expect you to start the transfers again. I understand why you stopped. I just needed you to know that I know what I did. I sat with the message for a long time without doing anything. Then I called her back. She answered on the second ring, which told me she had been waiting. I heard your message, I said. I meant it. I know you did. I wasn't sure yet how much that changed, but I believed her, and believing her felt like something. I'm not ready to come back to family dinners. I understand, and the money situation is what it is. I'm not a position where I can continue what I was doing, and I'm not sure I would even if I could. I'm not asking you to. I know you're not. I'm saying it so it's clear. I paused. You're okay? Financially? I'm figuring it out. Your brother is helping with the car situation. Rebecca has been. She stopped. Reconsidered. We're managing. Okay, can I take my granddaughter to lunch sometime? Just the two of us? I thought about my daughter asking why Grandma didn't say anything. I thought about her asking whether that meant they thought I was trash too. I thought about her asking, genuinely confused, on the car ride to soccer practice the week after, whether she was too sensitive, because two adults at that table had suggested it in her presence, and she was 7 and she was processing. Let me ask her, I said. It's her choice. My mother accepted that without argument. I told my daughter that night before bed. I told her that Grandma had called and apologized and had asked if she wanted to have lunch together, just the two of them, somewhere she could pick. My daughter considered this for a long time. She was lying on her back looking at the ceiling with the particular seriousness of someone making a real decision. Does Grandma know it wasn't okay? She said. What happened? Yes. Did she say so? She did. Okay, my daughter said. I want to go to the place with the good grilled cheese. I'll tell her. But if Marcus comes, I'm not going. Noted. She nodded once, which was as formal as a 7-year-old could be, and picked up her book. I had removed myself from the family group chat 2 days after Thanksgiving, quietly, no announcement. My brother texted me separately to ask if I'd left on purpose. I said yes. He said the chat wasn't the same without me, which was either genuinely sweet or a veiled complaint about losing the person who had historically organized the logistics. I chose to believe it was genuine, because he was my brother and I was not yet ready to lose him entirely. My sister-in-law did not reach out again. I did not expect her to and was not particularly bothered. Some people enter your life through the door of someone you love and never really come inside, and pretending otherwise for the sake of holidays is its own kind of slow damage. On a Friday in the first week of December, I sat down and paid my own bills. Just mine. My mortgage, my utilities, my daughter's after-school program, my car, my groceries, my life. The number was entirely manageable, and the absence of someone else's costs felt like something I didn't have a word for, somewhere between relief and grief and something that was just quiet. I transferred nothing to anyone. I thought about it, whether that made me a bad daughter or a cold person or someone who had let money become more important than family. I thought about it the way I had trained myself to think about difficult problems, by looking at the actual data rather than the story I'd been telling myself about it. The data was, I had given, for 4 years, more than I had ever been asked to give, and more than anyone knew I was giving. And no one at that dinner table had thought I was worth one sentence. Not one. My daughter had sat in a basement with her ears turned pink, and not a single adult in that house had said her name in her defense. That was the data. I was not a bad daughter. I was a daughter who had finally understood the difference between love and accommodation, and had decided, quietly, to stop confusing one for the other. My daughter and I started our own Friday tradition, nothing elaborate. We ordered in, we played whatever board game she chose, we stayed in our pajamas, and we did not pretend that being related to people was the same thing as being safe with them. We were a small family and we were, on those Friday nights, entirely sufficient. She beat me at Uno 3 weeks in a row and announced each victory with the solemnity of someone collecting a debt. I let her. The car loan situation resolved itself by January. My mother had refinanced with a credit union my brother had helped her find. My name came off the account on a Tuesday morning and I received the confirmation email at 8:47 while I was in a staff meeting and had to look away from my phone for a moment to collect myself in a way I was not going to explain. To 14 subordinates. I had not realized, until it was gone, how long I had been carrying something I never agreed to carry forever. My aunt called that same week to check in. She was the kind of person who called to check in without an agenda, which had become rare enough that I noticed it. She asked how my daughter was, how work was, whether I was eating well, which made me laugh. She said she was proud of me, which I almost deflected but didn't. For what specifically? I asked instead. For saying the thing out loud, she said. You know our family doesn't do that. We carry things. We carry them and then someone says something at a holiday dinner and we drive home and put it in a folder and keep carrying it. I had a folder, I said. I know, honey. That's what I mean. My daughter and I went to lunch with my mother on a Saturday in late January. She had chosen the right restaurant, the one with the grilled cheese, and she had not brought anyone else, and she had worn perfume my daughter recognized and mentioned immediately, which broke some of the tension at the door. My mother held my daughter's hand on the way to the table. My daughter let her. We did not talk about Thanksgiving. We talked about the Hawk poster, which had received a very good grade. We talked about what my mother was watching on television. We talked about a movie my daughter wanted to see. On the way to the car afterward, my daughter took my hand and then took my mother's hand and connected us in a chain, which was either innocent or the most diplomatic gesture of her short life. I suspected both. I did not restart the transfers. My mother did not ask me to. This was the new shape of things, not exactly repaired, not exactly broken, but honest in a way it hadn't been before, which turned out to be the thing I had needed most without ever having had the language for it. Some families are born and some families are built and some families are both and neither, depending on the day and what everyone decides to do with the day they're given. I had decided to stop spending mine on people who treated it like a resource rather than a gift. My daughter, that spring, made a friend at school. A girl named Priya who also liked red-tailed hawks and also liked reading in corners and who came over on a Saturday, and the two of them spent 4 hours on a project no adult had assigned them, mapping some world they had invented, with very detailed geographical notes. I made them lunch and stayed out of their way. When Priya's mother picked her up, she stood at the door for a moment and said my daughter was wonderful. Just that. Wonderful. Her voice was warm and she meant it, and my daughter heard her from the hallway. I thanked her. After they left, my daughter came and sat beside me on the couch with the easy familiarity of someone who has never had to wonder whether they're welcome. She put her head against my arm and picked up her book, and I picked up mine, and we sat there, 2 people in a family of 2, which was not the smallest possible family and was, on that afternoon, exactly the right size.